Hey, it's me again. In this video, we're going to talk about evaluation. This is another example of how to evaluate. Evaluation means to analyze the data to find a reason why something is occurring. So this is a 71-year-old female. She gave me all her data, and we're going to go through each piece of data and just kind of go up and down and see if we can make sense out of it, see if it relates, see if it associates for the reason of finding the root cause. Typically, the mistake of evaluation is to treat effects individually and not try to understand the effects. So, number one, she craves sweets. That could come from a low potassium, that can come from an insulin problem, many things. But here's number two, drinks 1.5 gallons of milk a week. So that kind of jumps out. That's a lot of milk she drinks. So, and then we have urinary frequency. That can come from menopausal symptoms. It can also come from other things, which I'll get to. Spider veins. That is it's a vitamin C deficiency, but you can't fix it by taking ascorbic acid. That's what people think is vitamin C. That's just the antioxidant portion. You have to have the whole vitamin C complex, especially the bioflavonoids. Okay, so that's because bioflavonoids, that's part of the vitamin C complex, helps to maintain the integrity of the vessel and the collagen, but we'll come back to that. Okay, takes vitamin D and calcium, probably because she has osteoporosis, but she has bone pain here. History of kidney stones, that's a calcium issue. It could be other things too, a pH issue. Bright lights bother her. That is a vitamin A deficiency. So again, I'm kind of thinking out loud as we go through this. Feet fall asleep. Right, that can be peripheral neuropathy. That's like a diabetic thing with a lot of insulin issues, or it could be a circulation issue, and there's other causes as well. And then we have anxiety, osteoporosis, high blood pressure. Okay, hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, hysterectomy, 1995, fibroids, and then she's pear-shaped. So this is estrogen, stiffness, and terrible sleep. So here's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to scan and kind of see if two of these or more of these start connecting. One of the things that stands out is this milk thing right here. Now that's a lot of calcium. So she's getting a ton of calcium. She's taking calcium, okay? And vitamin D increases the absorption of calcium by 22 times. So it increases calcium in the blood, okay? And then, but she still has osteoporosis, all right? Now, one of the symptoms of falling asleep or numbness in the feet is something called hypercalcemia. What does that mean? It means a lot of calcium in the blood, too much calcium in the blood. So now, this one does relate to high calcium. That's interesting. So that's one thing that it could be more associated with, because this aligns with that. Now, taking vitamin D and calcium, that also aligns with too much calcium. Anxiety is another symptom of hypercalcemia. High blood pressure. Now, that could come from many things. It could be adrenal, but let's pretend that there's high calcium in the arteries. Well, guess what that's going to do? It's going to calcify the arteries. Arteriosclerosis, plaquing in the arteries. Boom! That relates to hypercalcemia. Urinary frequency would also relate to hypercalcemia. Kidney stones would relate to hypercalcemia. Okay, so now one thing about hypercalcemia, there's high calcium in the blood, but it doesn't mean that it's going into the bone. So of course she has osteoporosis because it's not being directed to the bone, but bone pain is a symptom of hypercalcemia. You could look it up. So here's what I'm seeing that she's having. She has too much calcium. When you take vitamin D, and I didn't ask her how much she's taking, but if she's taking a lot of vitamin D and a lot of calcium, she's going to get symptoms of heart problems because that calcium is going to plug everything up. What she's missing and what kind of stands out for me is something to direct the calcium into the bone, and that's vitamin K2. So vitamin K2 is what I see that she's missing the most of. One thing I noticed that I didn't write down here is she's been on a low-fat diet for years. Well, guess what vitamin K2 is. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. It comes from butter, grass-fed cheese, grass-fed chickens with the egg yolk, grass-fed beef. So K2 is what she's missing. So that's one thing that I'm going to probably recommend to start taking this immediately and stop drinking this milk, and the calcium, start taking the K2 to start to drive all this calcium into the bone from the blood into the bone. That's the most important thing that she needs help with. Now, vitamin K2 also is a fat-soluble vitamin. So the other thing that I would probably want to get more data on is number two, does she have a gallbladder? Does she have enough bile? Because another thing that's in the back of my mind, if she has bright light problems like at night, that's a vitamin A deficiency. That's a fat-soluble vitamin. So I'm like, why does she have that? I don't know why that is. So I would start asking about the gallbladder, if she has enough bile, because it could be if she doesn't have enough bile, that could be why she's not absorbing any fat-soluble vitamins, especially if she's been in a history of a low-fat diet. So we might want to give her a little bile salts to absorb the fat-soluble vitamins and get the K2 in there so she can start to drive out this calcium, and then work with her doctor to adjust this medication, because if she didn't have calcium in the arteries, the blood pressure is going to come down, the bones will start getting solid, these symptoms will start improving. So that's the thing that's the most important. Hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings. Now this is interesting. She's had these symptoms since 1975 after she had the fibroid out. So the other thing that I'm thinking of fibroid, if we take it back earlier, fibroids are a tumor. And tumors grow with various hormones that are called anabolic hormones. They make things grow. Two of the hormones is estrogen and insulin. So I would probably ask her history of her diet, if it was like a lot of sugar in the past. If it wasn't, I would ask her about estrogen. And I already know, based on her history, that she's been on Premarin, which is an estrogen replacement, for many, many, many years. Okay, so that's probably why she has the fibroid, and then she removed it. But see, when you do a hysterectomy, you have a backup organ that has to then do double the work, and that's the adrenals. So these symptoms are really adrenal related. So she really has two issues that have to be dealt with. But this stuff here, if supported with the adrenal support, those will probably improve. And then of course the pear-shaped, that's an estrogen thing. And then one last thing, well, two things. One is stiffness. Well, that's calcium in the soft tissues. Terrible sleep. Well, if you're not going to get calcium, you're not going to be able to relax. Again, like everything here aligns with this one problem. So that's pretty much how I evaluate and how other people should evaluate, and not just jump and start treating everything separately. All right? So I'll see you in the next video.